I grew up thinking that I could do anything, and I still have that belief. There's like nothing I cannot do if I wanted to do it. And I've seen parents tell their children, no, you can't do this or this for these reasons. But I was never taught something like that. And I just have this firm belief because I know who I rely on. And if I want to do it, it can be possible. I just absolutely knew what I wanted to do. There was one box in all these 300 that said musician. And that was the only box I checked. Wow. I went into this counselor. I said, I want to get a doctorate in piano. I didn't even really know what it was. They said, you can't do that. They told me that.
What?
They said, you have to do this. If you're not doing it by now, it's too late.
I'm Becky Brower, and I'm a Sendy mom. You're listening to the Sendy Mom Podcast.
Welcome to the Sendy Mom Podcast. We're excited to be here with my very good friend, Dr. Christie Sowby. I know that a lot of your life happens to be about piano, and that's how we know each other. But there is so much more to you than just the piano. So that's what we're going to talk about today, wherever this ends up going. So this is Dr. Christie Sowby, and she is an accomplished pianist and teacher and leader in the world of music education. With degrees and studies from Brigham Young University, Harvard, the New England Conservatory, and the University of Utah, Christie has mastered extended piano technique and thrives on championing contemporary music. And we'll explain what extended piano techniques are, because probably a lot of listeners have no idea what that means. Christie's passion for learning has driven her to participate in organizations like the Encore Music Teachers Association, where she is the past president of that organization.
It's a lot nicer being past president.
It always is, right? And also the Utah Music Teachers Association, which is where we got to know each other as well. And she was recently honored with the prestigious Legacy Award as their youngest recipient, and that's kind of a huge deal. Beyond this, she's active in national and international music groups such as MTNA, ISME, and NCKP, and she studied high performance strategies with Olympic trainer Dr. Craig Manning. So that is super exciting too. As a performer, Christie has graced stages worldwide, including her 2018 debut at Carnegie Hall, and has won multiple international piano competitions and local too, right? She regularly collaborates with orchestras and instrumentalists, and even performs in a duo with her husband, who plays the marimba while she's on the piano. Locally, she is the pianist for the Timpanogos Symphony Orchestra and plays frequently for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. She's an award-winning teacher. Her students excel in competitions and grow in character under her guidance. Her teaching accolades include the MTNA National Studio Teacher Fellowship, Utah's Best of State Award, and the Royal Conservatory of Music's Teacher of Distinction Award. Whether coaching private lessons, where she was my teacher for a little while, leading master classes, or teaching summer camps, Christie is devoted to nurturing a lifelong love of learning in her students. She is also a frequent lecturer, judge, and webinar presenter, sharing her expertise at music conferences worldwide. Christie serves as a jury member for the World Piano Teachers Association and the Encore International Music Competition, and evaluates for MTNA's E-Festival. And you also judge for the Outstanding Young Women competition, right?
Distinguished Young Women.
Distinguished Young Women. There you go. When she's not immersed in music, Christie treasures time with her husband, Dr. Robert Sowby, and their daughter, embracing the harmony of family life.
Wow.
So there you go.
I'm exhausted. Oh my gosh, I remember this stuff now. That's why I write it down.
Yeah, exactly.
So sweet.
So very accomplished. And so I wanted to give you kind of that background, because Christie is like one of the most Sendy women that I know.
Oh my gosh.
Does so many things and pushes herself. And, I remember during COVID, you decided you wanted to get 4 awards or something like that.
I'm trying to remember all of this. Yeah. Yes, I applied. I'm trying to remember what they were. There was one. I need to be clear. It was through Federation. They have 2 awards for people that are blind. One is if you're half blind, and one is if you're fully blind. Because of my cancer, I'm blind in my right eye. And I'm like, well, who else is going to apply for this?
Oh my goodness.
And like there was a monetary award to it. So I'm like, I'm going to apply for that. Ophthalmologist, he definitely certified that I'm blind in my right eye. I got the award. I don't think that's applied for very often.
Well, there you go.
And so, that was a very fun award.
Well, and you encouraged me to apply for some awards and things like that too, because there are things out there that people just don't even look into. And so that's kind of Sendy, to just look for these opportunities that can help you to progress. And, and especially, if people are watching this who have kids that are going to go to college or, are seeking other kind of help with some of the things that they want to do, just look for those kinds of things.
I had no idea, and maybe we'll talk about this later, but I didn't know how college worked. I didn't know that you could get scholarships for, like, I heard about scholarships. I didn't know like how they were given to you. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that you could receive scholarships for getting good grades, for example. Okay. And once I found that out after the first semester, my GPA went way higher.
Yeah.
I mean, I was motivated, but it made a lot of difference. So just figuring out that you can get grants, you can get scholarships for doing your very best. It's made a big difference.
Well, and, I find having a passion for something can also motivate you to do really well.
You know what? As you brought that up, I was thinking of an experience where I went and saw a school counselor. Maybe my mom was there, and I'm thinking this was probably 7th grade, and they had us fill out the questionnaire, 300 plus questions. Are you interested in doing this, 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 this?
Right.
I don't know if I was a snot. I don't know. I just absolutely knew what I wanted to do. There was one box in all these 300 that said musician. And that was the only box I checked.
Wow.
I went into this counselor and they told me, I said, I want to get a doctorate in piano. I didn't even really know what it was. I thought doctor, that sounds cool. Uh-huh. But the counselor, it was actually a bad experience. They said, you can't do that. They told me that.
What?
They said you have to do this, 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 this. If you're not doing it by now, it's too late.
Are you kidding me?
And I actually really want to take my degree back to that counselor and say, look what I did.
My goodness.
But I think that was actually more motivating for me when people tell me no. I'm like, oh no, I can do that. But that was very vivid in my mind, going to that counselor. But I'm just so surprised that someone would say that. But in the end, it turned out to be good.
To destroy that dream. And what I've kind of found with my kids, it's much more important the kind of drive that they have rather than what they're experiencing, right? And so anytime my kids had any kind of interest in anything, I totally promoted it. Like two of my kids wanted to be Navy SEALs. They read a book about Osama bin Laden, catching him and whatever. And they really wanted to do that. And so I totally pushed them and helped them, to get to where they wanted to. And in the end, they chose different paths, which is totally fine. But to have something that you're reaching for and hoping for, I think is a really important thing to have. Well, and then on top of that, I think that knowing you and how driven you were, you could succeed in anything, Christie.
Well, that was one of the questions that you had. And I was thinking about what my parents did, and they did exactly what you did, which is just supporting us in our desires and our ambitions. And they never pushed us, which is weird. I think my siblings, we don't need pushing. We've never needed a horse, a taskmaster, but they just found what we were interested in and helped us, whether it was paying for piano lessons and doing the best that they could financially to make those dreams happen. And I think that's interesting because all my siblings, there's 4 of us, we do very different things. But I think what I learned from that, and I've met people and told them this, and maybe they thought it was odd, but I grew up thinking that I could do anything. And I still have that belief. There's nothing I cannot do if I wanted to do it. And I've seen parents tell their children, no, you can't do this or this for these reasons. But I was never taught something like that. And I just have this firm belief because I know who I rely on. And if I want to do it, it can be possible.
Wow. Okay. So tell me about that journey from when did you start taking piano lessons and when did that become a real desire for you?
Well, I think this is going back to that counselor that was saying, no, it's too late, because I took from just my neighbor who taught piano at a very, very basic level. And I'm grateful for her training that she taught me how to read. She gave me the basics, but nothing in technique. And I won't really get into that, but I was age 7 or 8. And after a year or two, my older brother was taking, I actually surpassed him. And he was really like kind of ticked that I had done that. And I didn't mean to. I enjoyed playing it. And he actually stopped playing, but I just kept on going. And
so maybe a little bit of competitiveness.
Maybe. So it was, but I took from her and I learned as much as I could. And then my grandma, she also taught piano. I never took from her, but she was just kind of a firm person that I could go to that was rooted in music. She understood. And I didn't have an acoustic piano, which is, for everyone that's listening, like it's a real piano.
Like your regular piano, right?
It's not a digital piano. So I had like not even a full-size keyboard until I was probably 12 or 13.
Oh, it wasn't even full-size electric keyboard?
I don't think so. And my grandma said, you've got to get this girl a piano, because I was staying at her house. I was probably 10 years old, and I taught myself for release in one day. I saw on her piano, I'm like, oh, I really want, that's that famous song, and I want to learn it. And I didn't realize I could learn something really quick and on my own. And this was not performance level. Like it was just like,
not, but to read the notes.
I know, this is kind of fun. And then I would start going to music stores, and I would just open up all the music. I was determined to find the hardest piece of music that I could find. And I think it was at Dane's Music. So I was there a really long time. And I didn't even know this piece, but it was the Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto that I found. That looks pretty hard. I'm going to get that one. And so I taught it to myself again, because this piano teacher could not, very basic stuff. And so I took it to her at the end of the summer. We had a whole summer break, and I played it for her. And she said, I cannot help you. And so that's when I realized, and my parents, you need to go to another teacher, like a professor in piano. So that's when I started that. And again, I was not playing the Tchaikovsky First Piano Concerto at concert performance level, but it was so thrilling to me. And I would listen to the Van Cliburn recording, and from my grandma, she knew who Van Cliburn was. And that was just really inspiring to me. And I got to perform that with orchestra in high school.
Well, and isn't that the case is a lot of times we get into things because we're inspired by listening to somebody else. And I remember hearing Piano Guys, John Schmidt. John Schmidt talking about when he got inspired to play the piano was because he had played a little song in his 5th grade or 6th grade class or something like that. And his teacher said, oh, you should play these variations that Mozart has done on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And so he got those, and he started plunking them out and learning them. And he spent so much time learning these. And that's where it really took off. And that's where the inspiration comes, is when you see somebody else, or when somebody gives you a challenge or an invitation to do something more with yourself and to feel like you're progressing. That's what gives us so much joy. And because it helps with that creative process that brings us joy. So I love that.
That reminded me, 2 days ago, I was so lucky. I saw Yo-Yo Ma at the Utah Symphony. And 5 years ago, I had tickets to see him at Red Butte Garden, which is by the University of Utah. And he does like a kind of a side band, and it's not like him playing classical cello. And 5 years ago, my daughter was having just some really hard months. She frequently has hard months, but we had to give away these tickets. We just couldn't go. And I cried. I'm like, this is Yo-Yo Ma. He never comes to Utah. And so my in-laws, they gave me tickets for my birthday to see him 2 days ago. And like, we were going at all costs this time with the Utah Symphony. But coming back to why I'm bringing this up is that just to be in his presence was incredible. They got tickets, I think, for like the 3rd row. Wow. So I was right in front of him. And when he came out, he was looking at the audience, like the ones that were really close to him and all around as well. Yeah. But he would wink at the little kids, and he looked straight into my eyes. And I just started crying, because there's someone that I revere. But what I truly took away was that while he was playing, he would acknowledge the orchestra members around him. He would look at them. He would smile at them. He would encourage them. And you could just see, like, they sat up a little bit straighter, and they were like beating off of his energy. I feel like everybody who was watching him work with the musicians around him, I've never seen a soloist someone playing a concerto with orchestra buoy up the orchestra while they're playing. It was never one moment about him. So I felt inspired from that experience.
Yeah. Well, and isn't that charity? That's what I think of when you tell me about that, is like, we do so much better when we feel loved, don't we? Like if we feel seen and understood, then we feel like we want to be better. It helps us to feel like we can accomplish anything, which sounds like how it was in your family growing up, that there was a lot of love and support there.
And acceptance. And it still is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though we've all taken different paths and things that are unexpected, like not everything turns out exactly the way you want to. My mom and my sister and I, we all had cancer within 5 years.
Yeah, we need to get into that.
And it's such a journey, but I think that love, it bound us, and we are stronger, through these unexpected things. And that was one thing I wanted to focus on today, is that we all have trials, no matter who we are. So I was thinking about the whole idea of taking risks, and sometimes these risks aren't things that we are choosing. Going through cancer is a very risky thing, and having to do chemotherapy and radiation and making these choices. Like I remember my sister, I think this was about a year ago. She's in 5 years of her stage 4 colon cancer. She's younger than I am. But there was a surgery where they said, a good chance you will either die from having the surgery, or you'll die if you do have the surgery, or you'll die if you don't have the surgery. Like that is very risky. Yes. She ended up living. It was a very small percentage of chance that she would survive the surgery, but she did it.
Wow. And is there hope for her?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Miracle after miracle after miracle. She is alive, and she's cancer free. The complications from cancer will be there forever. Just like my eye. I'm blind from radiation. Tumor itself in my eye is gone. I just wanted to emphasize that sometimes we don't ask for taking risks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And my friend that just passed away in this last week, she was my first interview, that I had on this podcast. So definitely go back and listen to that one, because it was pretty amazing. That's, one of the things that we did talk about is that sometimes you have things thrust upon you. She talked about that people think that I'm brave, but I didn't have any choice in this. But at the same time, you do have a bit of a choice how you're going to respond to the things that are given to you. And that's what it means to be Sendy. It's trying again and, putting things away and, just putting it behind you and going forward as much as you can. So
laughing instead of crying.
Exactly.
Sometimes though you do have to cry.
Yes.
But I remember learning that from President Hinckley, who was the prophet for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that was their motto. You always laugh instead of cry. And it gets you further in life.
That's amazing. So, Kate, tell me a little bit more about your growing up, like maybe some of the risks that you took when you were like in high school and how that progressed you to where you wanted to be.
Okay. I was thinking of like one specific example, but my parents, they're both not musicians. They don't know anything about the piano. I think if you asked my mom, she couldn't tell you where middle C is. They didn't know what to do with this daughter that I love the piano. I want to play it all day, every day. So I think it was a risky thing for me, because I had not seen an example of going out and playing with an orchestra. Yeah. I was a violist, and the advantage of playing in an orchestra is that when they had the concerto competitions, I always applied for the piano version of it. I didn't know how to do it. And my parents didn't either, but we just kind of trusted my teacher and the process of like working with the orchestra and doing the best I can. So I think that was a risk for me, that I didn't know how to do this, and I'm going to do my best. And they were good experiences, definitely at moments terrifying, where you're just hoping that everything works out. And it did. Like, it wasn't without bumps and bruises, but I loved the piano, and it just like opened up my world of, I want to play more with orchestra or with solo. One other thing that I felt was kind of risky is that both my parents did not graduate from college. And so even like going to college, applying to universities, that was a big thing for me. And like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, okay, I'll just follow what's on the internet. It just somehow worked out, and I applied and went.
Well, and sometimes you just have to take a step, and then you figure things out as you go along. And I mean, that's really how we teach piano too, right? Is, like maybe let's just work on this first measure even, or the last measure, and see, how we can make this better. And then you add more. But once you learn the piece, then you refine it, and then you start discovering things about it that you didn't even know existed or that could exist. And the way that you connect to the composer and the way that you connect to the piece itself. And that is really what it means to go through life. We just don't see what the big picture is going to be, but as we learn it, we get more nuances as it goes.
Right. And then you're able to teach that to students, and they can play it, as I have found, at a higher level than I was able to, the more experience that I get. And I feel like kind of struggling through these experiences of having to do these things without a lot of guidance. I'm able to help guide my own students more through college. And that's why I do the Distinguished Young Women program, because you get scholarship money for a lot of times simply just participating in it at the local and state and even national levels. And I love that program.
Yeah, it gives them opportunities to be able to take risks, to be able to improve their lives, and to be able to grow, because that's really what it's all about. And I remember seeing somewhere that every child needs 5 adults in their life that really care for them and understand them to thrive and to grow. And so I've always felt like as a piano teacher, we have that opportunity. And I would say not even children, I think everybody, and you need at least 5 people who really care for you and want the best for you. And sometimes even if you just have one person that is really going to cheer you on, it can make a really big difference in what you're able to offer to the world. So
I agree. And that made me think of a viola teacher that I had at BYU, because when I entered BYU, I didn't know if I really wanted to major in piano or viola. I kind of wanted to major in both, but I didn't know if that was possible. So I took viola lessons from Claudine Bigelow, Dr. Claudine Bigelow. She's such a hero to me. I remember interviewing her for some school assignment, and I kind of asked her a question like, what is your goal in life? And I was so shocked by, and still kind of am to this day, about her answer. And she said, I just want to contribute. And this is someone who has the most prestigious students, and they go to any school in the whole world and they can be successful. She herself is so successful. And that simple, humble answer, I just want to contribute. I thought, but you can do anything. You can teach anywhere. You can perform anywhere. And she just wants to contribute. But the more I've thought about it, that is such an amazing answer. And it's such a big, all-encompassing answer. And she just wants to help others be better.
Yeah.
I love that.
And that's where your joy comes from, is being able to see those children, those students to really progress. And that brings a lot of joy. We're about halfway through the podcast. I want to remind you that this podcast is also on our YouTube channel at Sendy Mom. You can find our website at sendymom.com and on Instagram at sendy.mom. You can subscribe, review, and share this episode with people you think might need this message. Next week, I will have a bonus Sendy Spotlight episode for you to enjoy. I like my guests to choose their spotlight, and no surprises, Christie chose Jesus Christ. I would encourage you to learn more about Jesus Christ by reading the Holy Bible, Book of Mormon, and other scripture that speaks of Christ. Because a spotlight on Jesus Christ would never do it justice, I decided to do a Sendy spotlight instead on Clara Schumann, a beautiful composer and performer who supported her family when her husband Robert, who was also a composer and pianist, had mental health challenges. In the next Sendy Mom episode, in about 2 weeks, I'm excited to introduce you to my mother-in-law, Aunt Sprower. You will love her. Everywhere I go, people tell me how much they love her. She is a sassy Dutch lady who is smart, quick, and fearless. She's taught me to not sweat the small stuff and just be myself without apology. We talk about her experiences growing up in the Netherlands after the Second World War and things she is doing in her 80s to keep her mind active and sharp and to keep positive. Be sure to tune into that episode number 13. It will hopefully be out on January 17th. Enjoy the remainder of my interview with Christie Sowby. Can we talk about Evelyn?
Yes, you're so good. My goodness. I think I had to actually write down, I had this amazing 7-year-old daughter, and we talked about bravery, and she's the bravest person that I know. And maybe because I'm her mom, and maybe all moms can say that about, their kids. But she deals with autism, rumination. Rumination is where you vomit for her hundreds of times a day. And you just kind of keep it in your mouth, and sometimes it comes out. Global development delay, seizures. She would seize for the first 5 years of her life up to 400 times a day and night. Like it was constant, but I'll keep going. This is why I wrote it down, so I can't go too much into it. Femoral anteversion, that's where her hips are backwards, but that causes issues in walking, which is interesting. So we've had like gait trainers, which is kind of like a wheelchair thing that you have to walk with, but that's if she would even like hold the sides. And we've had leg braces. You just have to laugh about this stuff because we're making it through. Gastro issues, allergies to food, even just like going to the bathroom each day is a challenge. So this, like, I love her so much because I see someone struggle on a daily basis to do just the most basic of things. She's completely reliant on me and my husband, and we have caretakers, which is why I can be here. That's made all the difference in the world.
Is she verbal?
No. So that's a very big challenge. She's severely autistic. She's in the 0.1 to 0.4 percentile. Like it's as autistic as you can get.
Okay.
Essentially. And so, nonverbal. But she does have this iPad that she has school teachers that come to the house we recently moved to American Fork, and we're by the Dan Peterson special needs school. And the teachers come to our house and they help her. Like they said it might take a lifetime to like be able to point to the word yes. And that actually can mean something. But right now she's just whacking at things, and we're going through that process. So I'm amazed by her, and she has a buoyant personality, and she does cry, but she only cries if she's super frustrated, which isn't very often for the amount of things that she goes through. I would be a wreck.
Yeah, no kidding. So she's homebound.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. We can't take her really like to I had a friend who really wanted us to go to a live nativity a week and a half ago, and they were really pushing us to go, and we went in, and just the whole environment was so loud that she can't wear headphones. Like there's all these reasons why. And so we were there for about 1 minute, and we left, and that's pretty normal. So like going to family activities, like especially around the holidays, we can take her in, stroll her in for just a few minutes, and then we have to go. So like that's a big sacrifice. And talking about things that are unexpected in our life, we can't do big family things anymore. Like Rob and I my husband Rob, we have to trade off going to things or plan. Like we have very specific caretakers for Evelyn. You just can't hire a 14-year-old to come and watch her, but they have to be trained and nurses, and
wow,
it's a big thing.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about like what you went through when you found out that she was going to be like that, because it's a genetic
disease, we didn't know though. So she started seizing, and I noticed these repetitive movements. She's our first and only child. When she was about 11 months old.
So did she seem fairly normal until that point?
Yep, she was normal. Your heart and your stomach just drops, right? And I realized that she was seizing, and we took her to doctors. So she spent her first birthday in primary children's, and she was diagnosed. And a lot of these things I've like really put out of my mind, because I actually feel like that's a blessing, because like when you hear 400 seizures a day for 5 years, it's so intense. And I just feel like I've been able to like move forward from that. But I remember early on, the doctors were like, if you don't fix this, like they were telling us this, and we moved on from this neurologist since then. If you don't fix this in the next 2 to 3 weeks, this will happen, like the global development delay, all these things that have come. But I felt so responsible early on. Like, I don't know what to do. And like medicines, there were these shots that can work for children with infantile spasms. That's what it started out as. And they were $125,000 for like it was either per month or a 6-month period. Like we've been through 30, 40 different types of treatments. We did not go that route, but I felt so responsible to like try and find a solution. And I remember sitting in the hospital, like what is even infantile spasms? And
my goodness, you got an education.
I feel like I could be a neurologist, even though a neurologist, they're obviously incredibly brilliant, but you find out a lot. Just like when you go through cancer, you find out a ton, and you're able to turn around though and help others with that information.
So what are some of the tools that you think you gained from that experience?
Empathy. I feel like we have to accept Evelyn, and Rob and I talk about this all the time. We have to accept her for who she is, because she is without guile. You can't say, can you do this, Evelyn? And she will do it. She does. Whatever she can do is like good enough. And I think that is so beautiful, to completely accept someone for who they are without trying to change them. That is something I've never encountered, ever.
That's an important lesson for everyone to be able to understand. And honestly, it's like probably one of the most difficult things to learn in life too, is how to get into somebody else's shoes. So I think it's pretty Sendy of you to find the gratitude.
Absolutely.
For having that.
And you see miracles when you have like these type of kids. I just think they're the most angelic people on earth. And I never was like attracted to disabled people. And I remember like when I grew up, there was someone who was kind of in my neighborhood, and they had a child that was in a wheelchair. So I was thinking back, like how I wonder how people might perceive me as a parent of a disabled child. And I remember thinking that was kind of like a weird family, or like they had to do things differently. Yeah. But I had no idea like the burden that they carried.
So what kinds of help do you feel like you could use from people?
We get it. We have the most amazing neighbors.
So what are some of the best things that have been able to help you?
And these are all like, I could talk about these and cry, but I'm just going to state it very plainly so I don't. But we've had people bring us meal after meal after meal after meal, because they know that I'm cooking for her. She has food allergies, and she has to have like special foods. And then like Rob and I, we love our cheese, and like we love eggs. And so I'm talking about like non-dairy, like we love dairy and eggs, and that's something that Evelyn can't have. So we still love to like have certain foods, but many times I use like that short time in between my teaching to cook for her. But they'll just bring it over, and this happens again and again and again and again and again.
And they just bring it.
And I don't ask for it. They don't know, but it's like they just know. Yeah. I feel grateful every time. We did learn how to use DoorDash during the pandemic. Yeah. I didn't want to have to rely on something like that, but when we're in tight spots, we do DoorDash. We can't ever have someone that like people have thought though, I can just take her for a few hours, like this whole respite thing, but she really has to stay in her house and her environment. Autistic kids are very much like that. And if you bring too many people over though, she gets overwhelmed. And so it's really...
And different people probably too. She needs to have the same people.
Exactly.
Yeah. I have a niece who is Down syndrome and autistic, and she's 17 now. I think she's 17, and she's nonverbal, and she can walk, but her hips are displaced all the time. And you don't know because she can't explain it to you, and she's just in pain. And I know that my brother and his wife have just felt so helpless to be able to help this child who they can't communicate with them. And they're trying now to figure out how to bathe her, because there's bathtub is upstairs or downstairs, and she's on the main floor. And so now they're trying to figure out if they can build a bathtub in her bedroom. And she also has lots of gastro problems. And so
the sacrifice is absolutely endless. And like I look at parents, how you're describing that, and I'm like, that is amazing. But I like forget, oh my gosh, I have to do like those same
what I've been
things.
Doing. Yeah.
And it's like, you wouldn't think that the smallest things make the biggest difference. Let me see if I can find an example. Diaper sizes. I go to Costco, and Evelyn, she's now in size 8 diapers, but Costco kind of stopped at size 5 or 6. But I felt like it was a miracle the day I walked into Costco and I saw Huggies size 7, and she was just getting into like the next size. And then I called Huggies last May. Like, who calls Huggies Corporation?
Yeah.
I do.
Of course you do.
Because you're Sendy Mom. Size 8. I have this child. We've used Huggies since day one. It's the only thing that doesn't, cause everything in her diaper to go everywhere. And they said, we just released it 2 weeks ago. And I feel like those are major miracles, but I'm already working on them for size 9. Please.
I should tell my sister-in-law about that.
It makes a big difference. And like the whole stair thing, going up and down stairs, she's only 50 pounds right now, but I'm always thinking ahead, like we need our backs 10 years from now.
Yep.
We built an elevator in our house. I know not everyone can do that, but we put all of our savings at like from my piano the past several years, and we built an elevator for her.
That'll help.
It does.
That's incredible. Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, and how does that affect your teaching then? Have you had to, well, and I mean, even because she's 7 years old, over the last 7 years, you haven't sat still. You've been doing like a ton of things. How have you been able to manage that while caring full time for this little girl?
It hasn't looked the same. Like when the first 5 years, I was teaching very little. Like I probably had 4 students, and that was it. I did go to UVU, and I was a professor there for piano. It was just good to like get out of the house. And so Rob and I would change. He would come home from work, and then that's when I would go to UVU. Did
you get your doctorate before you had her then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I was going through cancer in the middle of my doctorate. And
gosh, Christie.
I know. It was really crazy, but we felt really strongly that we just needed to wait to have children. And then we have Evelyn 10 years into our marriage.
Wow.
It was amazing. The first 5 years, it was very hard to just like do anything.
You had to kind of shut down. I mean, you've gotten your doctorate, you're teaching a few students, you have this child that completely changes your life, right?
Yes. And that's what I think one of your questions was like, what do you do when like your life changes? And I just think we had to learn a different way to live. And I understand that 2020 was a very hard year for many people. It was like one of the biggest blessings in our life because Rob, he's an engineer now at BYU, but he was a full-time engineer at Hanson Allen Luce in Salt Lake City. And all of a sudden he had to work from home. And I was like, oh my gosh, we have like another person to help with this baby that's going through so many things. And then he was starting to get like these polls from BYU, like, come work here. We want you to teach. And I'm like, what? Why are you changing jobs? And I should have been more supportive from the beginning. I wasn't like ever not supportive, but I just like always thought it was like a joke. Like, yeah, you can go interview, but like, you're really going to keep your engineering job, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, we're just going to just see what happens.
A lot of security with the engineering job where there's a little bit more.
I know. And he kept on going through the interview process. Again, this was all in 2020. And he got to the top, and I'm like, Rob, you got to tell them that you're like not serious about this. And he's like, no, I really think I need to do this. And he was the final candidate. And but I bring this up because he changed his job so he could be more at home with me and Evelyn. So he's just at BYU when he teaches, and he works with his students from home.
Wow.
And he has his office, but her whole area is in like, we moved your houses, and we built this house just for her. We forgot the elevator when we were building it, but we did it after the fact. But the sacrifices that parents make for these kids.
We don't know if it's going to be a good or a bad thing when things happen, right? Because I remember you also had a flood in your other house.
It was multiple floods. I say that because I would go downstairs, and they built all these houses over farmland. Those houses shouldn't have been built there, and all the neighbors' houses were flooding. But I would just go downstairs, and I'm like, there's water all on the ground. And that was like a very frequent occurrence. And we just said, we have to get out of here. And again, that was 2020. Like, it was such a pivotal year in our life. And so after like the 12th flood, and I'm not joking, I finally told Rob, I'm like, do you think we should move?
And maybe that was somebody trying to tell you.
Exactly. Maybe this is a sign, because it was no matter what we did to fix it, we did everything, you name it, we did it. And trying to deal with Evelyn, I'm like, I think we need to move. And we had no idea what would happen to the market. And we sold at top dollar. I get chills thinking about all of this. It was totally instrumental.
It needed to happen. And now you're in such a wonderful place.
Right. And because we sold our house at top dollar, I was able to get the dream piano that I wanted. Like, it's like, there are so many blessings from these experiences and the sacrifices that you go through.
Yeah, it's true. And one thing that I've noticed about you is that you focus on the positive stuff all the time. Like, I have never seen you like be upset or down about any of it. I'm sure you do in your quiet moments. There's some like release of those emotions because we all have them and everything. But at the same time, you're pretty stalwart and like you focus on the good things. Do you think that you were taught that at some point?
Absolutely. %. I mean, I have parents that they do look at the positive, but all of this goes to Craig Manning mostly, who was my high performance coach. And again, not going too much into it, so it's belabored. But I was getting to the point in my master's degree in piano where I would practice performing and then go on stage. And the performance on stage was not how I was practicing practicing performing, because we've talked about this, two very different things. And like the nerves would just get to me. That was frustrating to me, where I'm putting in 6-9 hours a day. And I'm like,
my gosh, I can totally relate.
Why am I not getting these results? And so I, again, just talking to the right people we were living in a basement apartment, and the person above us said, well, I know Craig Manning, because I don't even know how I found him. I think I was in the BYU bookstore. I found this book because I'm like, I've got to do something about up here. And I read this book in one day, and I was amazed about these things. It's called The Fearless Mind by Craig Manning. And I'm like, I've got to meet this man. And then I realized he was at BYU. So my upstairs neighbor, he said, I know him. I can introduce you to him. And I'm like, what? This was very, again, risky for me. I'm like, I don't do any sports. I'm a pianist. I'm a gymnast of the fingers. Just like, I decided I would go talk to him, and he was gracious enough. Like, I think that is miraculous, to meet me in, I think it's where they play volleyball. I don't even know what that.
In the Smithfield House or something?
Like, I've never been here before. This is out of my territory. But he was there, and he taught me for several years for free. Like, I give all credit to this man about high performance techniques. And he just totally changed my mindset. And even after a couple of weeks of studying with him, I had another big performance after this one that I felt like, should I even be playing the piano if I can't deliver what I've practiced so hard for? I always wanted to be a pianist, but it was like, do I have the ability to do this? And so that was very pivotal. But he taught me just a few techniques, and within 2 weeks I had another performance, and it was the best performance I felt in terms of like how I felt while I was playing. It was night and day difference.
Okay, so tell us what are some of those techniques?
It's like trying to do like several years within, a few things. But I've learned, first of all, that being a high performer is someone you are every single day, all day. It's not something you turn on when you walk on stage. Okay. It's who you are every hour of every day.
Okay.
And that was very eye-opening to me. I had taken high performance classes at BYU, but it was, they said meditate. They were kind of basic things, breathe this certain way, maybe write down what your dream is. And then at the very end of the class, the teacher said, and if that doesn't work, take beta blockers, which is a medicine you take to help calm your nerves. And I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. But just Craig, he taught, like, believe in yourself, and you focus on 3 things that you want to do well, that you can achieve.
Right.
And for some of us, it might be, I'm just going to walk out on stage. That's what I know I can do. Okay. I know I can do dynamics in this one spot exactly. I can play a forte there. Yep. I can lift my wrist at the end of a slur so the shaping is really beautiful. Very, very basic things. Never in all of my years since learning this, it's probably been 14 years now, I've never had the goal to play perfectly.
And I know this is what you taught me when we were playing piano. Like, you would always tell me, you'd say, I want you to pick one thing that you're going to work on this time when you go through it. And I've totally taken that to my students, and I've done it in my own. But I never thought of it in terms of performance, because I think about it when I'm practicing. Okay, I'm going to really work on this phrasing or whatever in this part of it. But I've never thought about it in performance. It's exactly the same thing, though. You're absolutely right. Like, you can already win if you decide this is the only thing that I'm going to care about this time. I'm going to make sure that as I'm playing, I'm thinking about this A major chord,
right?
Whatever.
And so what Craig taught me is that the results always take care of themselves when you're focused on the right things. That was one of your questions, like about outcomes. I'm never focused on outcomes ever, because the results take care of themselves if you're focused on the right things. So I always focus on 3 things I absolutely know I can do. And when I say none of my goals are to play perfectly, many times those results of what I'm focusing on result in accuracy, 100% no accuracy. And it's just amazing that that is the result to it. And that's what pianists want, right? We want to be no accurate. Or if you're a singer, you have to be on pitch where you can't be like, you can't get very far in the singing world or playing the violin. But again, if you're focused on, well, in order to play correctly on the violin, I need to have my finger in the exact right spot at the exact right moment. So you focus on 3 things that you did well. So I look back at that performance that forced me to find Craig Manning. And even though in my mind, I'm like, I know that wasn't my best. I'm like, I went out on stage. I played my heart out. I felt it in my soul. Like those are just 3 things. And then you focus on one thing that you can improve, not hundreds of things. And when you do that, you actually take like this 10,000 hour rule of if you practice 10,000 hours, you'll be proficient at something, but you can shrink it down. He taught me in as little as 6 months.
Wow.
You can become an expert at something. And that's what I've experienced, that I can go out and perform. And that allowed me to go get a doctorate, because my rule with my doctorate was I'm not going to do it unless I'm having the time of my life. And that's, if I ever felt like I wasn't feeling right and up here, then I wasn't going to do it. And I ended up getting it because I could enjoy what I was doing.
Where did you get your doctorate?
University of Utah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you were also at Harvard.
Yes. So Rob and I went to MIT. We lived there, and I took courses at Harvard and New England Conservatory, music course as well. He was at Harvard and MIT.
Was that getting your master's then? Or
it was in
that
between.
Just...
So it was like courses that applied.
Just extra.
Yes. And I think they applied to my doctorate, like going back and all that stuff.
Wow.
So yeah.
Well, and you've always been a real proponent of getting as much education as you possibly can. So you've always encouraged me to go back to school. And
yes. Well, this, again, something that surprised me after each degree. I remember walking out of my master's orals, your final oral examinations, and I was like, that's it. Like I need so much more. And because you start to realize how much you don't know.
And that's what I've found. And that sometimes that can be really frustrating as a pianist. Because I feel like, okay, well, for instance, I'll go and I practice a lot still, you know, like I'll get up at 5:30 every morning and I'll practice for like a good hour or something like that. Most mornings. There's some that I don't, you know, and so I'm not at the level of like playing 4 or 6 hours a day, like, you know, when you're getting your master's or whatever, but it's a little frustrating when I practice that much and it still takes me so long. And I think maybe it has something to do with that mindset that you were talking about, because I'm focusing on the length of time it takes me to get to where I want to be and the mistakes that I'm making, and rather than, you know,
what you're doing right,
what I'm doing right. Yeah. Okay. See, you're still teaching me.
But I really feel like at this point, and having this daughter with issues that you can't even count, that has helped me. So I don't even think this training with Craig Manning was about the piano.
It's just about life, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And being able to pass that on to so many other people, that makes you a Sendy mom.
Yeah. So I feel like that's kind of maybe my life story, is struggling through these things, but being willing to turn it around and pass it on to others. Like that is so satisfying to me, because I don't wish hard things on other people, but I know I have been changed through these really difficult experiences, and they're beautiful. And so I just try to turn around and make lemons lemonade and help others thrive.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, can I ask you a few rapid fire questions? So tell me, what has brought you joy in the last 24 hours?
Serving others, Relief Society, Ward Christmas party last night. There we go.
Sweet. Very good. What was the last TV show or documentary that you watched that you really liked?
Oh my gosh. I love documentaries. I don't ever actually watch TV shows. Documentaries are my thing. John Williams, Alex Honnold, and Leonardo da Vinci.
Great. Okay. I'm going to look those up, because that would be interesting. What was the last really good book that you read?
I was thinking about this one. You're going to find this weird maybe. I read 10 to 15 books at a time. Like, it's never just like,
10 to 15 is a lot. I usually have about 5 going on at the same time, but 10 to 15 is a lot.
So I was thinking, like, there's Jane Austen. I always have Harry Potter somewhere in the mix. I don't read a lot of fantasy, but I I reserve Harry Potter for that category.
I
love underdog stories. And so like my favorite one, and then I'll stop here, but I can tell you like all these books that I'm reading, The Boys in the Boat, underdog stories. It's my favorite because I kind of feel in a way that I just came from this. I had no idea what I'm doing, but I'm trying to make something from it. So Boys in the Boat speaks to my heart.
Love that. I love that one too. Good. Yeah. Those are great ones. Okay. What about favorite vacation spot? Do you even get to go on vacation?
No. And so like, this is again, a thing that we've had to sacrifice for Evelyn. And so instead of feeling sorry for myself, and hopefully we'll get to the point where like either Rob and I can trade off and we can like go on a vacation. We did go to Park City like 2 months ago, and that was our first time out in several years. Wow. Overnight, like to just get to the point to do that. And that's amazing to me. So instead of feeling sorry for myself, I actually pull up on my computer, like they have like this really calm music and like destinations in the world of like beautiful scenery. So I feel like I've been to Hawaii and Norway and these places that I'm interested in going to through just watching these beautiful scenery videos. And that helps me feel like I've
Will
seen
there
the
ever
world.
get to a point where you can leave her with somebody? And
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. Her challenges are too great right now. Believe me, we would love to get out.
Yeah, of course.
It's just, I think we're getting there.
Okay. Yeah.
We finally have like a good team that knows like her movements and how to deal with her difficult moments.
You're so patient and just and positive.
I just feel like you have to have we have totally the long view.
Yeah.
In mind. And that helps every single day.
Good. Yeah. And you guys, so how often do you have a helper at your house?
Every day.
Okay.
That's why I can smile and like breathe and put on makeup.
Yeah. But it was not like that for a little while.
No.
Yeah.
So we didn't get help until 2 years ago, and she has help for life.
Yeah.
That was one of those, just like you fall on the ground on your knees when you find that out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Okay. Name one thing that you try to do every day.
Read. But I also read my scriptures every day. That is something that I've done since age 15. Even if it's just a verse, I have to read the Book of Mormon.
Centers you. And what would you say I should try next?
Well, I was thinking eating a bug.
Eating a bug.
So you're talking about anything your heart desires and eating a bug.
Eating a bug. Okay, well, what happened to getting a bachelor's degree in music? Come on, that's like what you're pushing me towards. Like,
yes,
forever.
I think you should do that too.
Okay,
whatever's easiest, eating a bug or getting a bachelor's.
Yeah,
you should. You're capable.
I have to tell you, like over the last couple of weeks, I've been really frustrated with my piano. I kind of came to this realization that, okay, maybe I'm not meant to be a pianist, and maybe I'm not, right? And my fingers just can't do the things that other people's fingers can. And I've had to work at everything that I've done. Honestly, I'm just starting to think maybe everybody does.
Yes. Everything you said, I'm like, I feel that same exact way. There are 5-year-old Chinese students that can play faster than I will ever play in my life. It's the way things
So why
go.
do you do it?
Why do I do it?
Yeah.
To contribute. That's Claudine Bigelow's answer. Yeah. Because I find total satisfaction in giving to others. Like it's like my morsel I can offer in a different way than anyone else can. And that's not a prideful thing. Shakespeare said this, you alone are you. You can only offer certain things that no one else can. Becky Brower can only do this one thing through the medium of music, through piano. Yeah. That Christie Sowby can't do.
Right. Yeah. And that's true. And it's unfortunate we only have 24 hours in a day. And so we have to pick the kinds of things that we're going to do, but we need to be moving forward and doing something.
It's true.
And so I'm grateful for the things that you've chosen to do with your life. And you have been a huge inspiration to me. I think we didn't even tell people what extended techniques are.
Oh, it's just playing on the inside of the piano. And I found all of the beginning and intermediate pieces that exist in the world, supposedly, and Interlibrary Loan hated me in my doctorate. I would order hundreds of scores from all around the world. It probably cost them a fortune, but I found them, and I have little students that can play on the inside of the piano.
You've got some videos of it, right? Yeah. So send those to me and I'll put those in the show notes so people can see exactly what extended piano technique is, because it's pretty cool. And yeah, so you've done some incredible things in bringing light to other people. So thank you for that and being Sendy that way. So thank you for being with us today on Sendy Mom. Just really quickly, how do people find you? Are you on Instagram?
Yes. No. Social media. That's actually my life is very, I try to simplify it in as many ways as possible. So not on social media, but you can go to christiesowby.com and there's info on there.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Go check her out. So thank you for being with us today. And thank you so much, Christie, for talking with me today. It's been such a delight. So, all right. We'll see you next time. In the words of Eleanor Roosevelt, do something every day that scares you. I'm Becky Brower.